right, we're ready to go live. So welcome in, everyone. Happy Friday. Tonight is Friday night. It's the Prof Show, and we're going to do something tonight, cover something that I recently learned about, and I've been wanting to talk about. And you guys are going to be very interested in this. This is the Albuquerque Police Department DWI corruption scandal. And boy, wait till you hear the details of this. Interestingly enough, there's only one or two news outlets locally in New Mexico covering this. And it's literally a RICO. It's huge. And it's very, very ugly. So we'll be talking about that tonight. It's going to be interesting. But I believe that the notifications didn't go out. So whatever happened in my late scheduling, it didn't really hit the algorithm. So please let everyone know we're here and greet the new people as they come in. I'd be glad to see everyone join the chat and take the ride along with this story, because this is a very interesting story. So what we're going to do is we're going to first take a look at the most recent news that dropped on this, and then we're going to go back and do an entire recap of the whole story so that you guys know the story real well. But yeah, this is the Albuquerque Police Department DWI corruption scandal. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. So with that being said, I'm going to get my stuff together and get my video uploaded and everything, and just let everyone know we're here so they'll come in and you guys get comfortable as I will. Okay. So give me a little moment. You know, I'm not feeling my best, so I'm a little slacking today, but let me get busy and I'll be right back in 1 minute. Okay. 1 minute. Okay. Enough of that. So yeah, the Albuquerque Police Department DWI corruption scheme. You guys are going to be so interested in how weird and just slime ball this is. This is a dirty scandal. But yeah, apparently our notifications didn't go out, so we got no one here tonight. So yeah, big old Friday night. We got about 100 others somewhere hiding, um, probably scrolling YouTube, not realizing we're live. But we'll push forward anyway. Uh, Maybe they'll buy a clue. I should have shared this to Facebook. Wonder if I can do that. Can I get that going? Share this to Facebook. Get some people in here. Let's see. Let me do this. Okay, maybe it did go through to Facebook, so we might get 5 more people in here. But welcome everybody. Prof's not feeling good, okay? Not feeling good. I'll be honest with you, and I have somewhat of a headache because of it. But yeah, this scandal. Okay, so let me give you the brief real quick. So what would you do if the cops are pulling you over for drunk driving, but they weren't there to protect the roads, but running a side hustle? And what if those cops told you that paying a specific lawyer the right amount of cash would make that DWI case disappear permanently? In Albuquerque, New Mexico, that was a reality. It was a decades-long criminal enterprise run straight directly out of the Albuquerque Police Department's own DWI unit, with a very prominent defense attorney at the center of it all, bribing officers to sabotage the cases from the inside of the police department. That's right. This is the story of RICO, one of the largest law enforcement corruption scandals in New Mexico's history. It's a scandal so deep that it may have involved nearly an entire specialized police unit. It spanned 3 decades and let hundreds of DWI cases collapse, while some dangerous drivers got a free pass. Today, or tonight, we're going to be breaking down how this worked, who was involved, and the details from the federal plea deals, and why even now justice still hasn't fully been served. Stick around. This one, as many, gets worse the deeper you get. Now, New Mexico has long battled one of the worst DWI problems in the country. Albuquerque streets saw a lot of preventable tragedies. I mean, in the early 2000s, the Albuquerque PD created a specialized DWI unit because of this, which dedicated officers trained to get impaired drivers off the road and into court. This was timely and it was needed, but behind the scenes, something dark was taking place. Whispers started in about 2003 Internal affairs started looking into misconduct in the unit uh, i- within 10 years. Only 2 officers were initially disciplined after key video evidence conveniently went missing. Now, by 2019, 9 officers had been implicated. A secret investigation by the chief found nothing actionable. Tips kept coming in, however, including to the FBI. 2 arrested drivers told another attorney that they could have their case taken away, wiped, for thousands of dollars. Well, finally, that attorney tipped into the FBI. And by early 2024, the dam had broken. Federal search warrants, raids got underway. The story exploded in the local Albuquerque media. And we learned or started to learn some of the sickening truth. For years and years, certain officers in the Albuquerque Police Department weren't just not doing their jobs, but they were literally running a side hustle, sabotaging the badge and the justice system for their own benefit. Now, the way this scheme worked was at the center of this all sat an individual named Thomas Clear, a well-known defense attorney who built a massive practice on a high dismissal rate. Okay. He's admitted in federal court to running what he called a DWI enterprise since the 1990s. His enterprise eventually pulled nearly the entire DWI unit of the Albuquerque PDN. Okay. Now, here's how the scheme worked. An officer pulls someone over for suspected DWI, and in some cases the stops were legitimate, but in others, and this is according to their very own plea deals, because the guilty always take the plea deal. In others, the drivers were actually targeted. Okay, the individuals were personally and specifically targeted, and even set up. Now, if the dryer hired Clear's firm, they were told the case would be handled for a price. What was that price? $5,000 or more. That money was funneled back, or portions of that money were funneled back into the arresting officers. In exchange, the officers would simply not show up to court or fail to file the proper paperwork. Case gets dismissed, everybody wins, except, people out here in public safety. Now, one of the most chilling examples came from former Lieutenant Justin Hunt's plea deal. He admitted to participating in this scheme for over 10 years. In May of 2014, body cam footage from Hunt showed him pulling over a driver. Now, he already knew, interestingly enough, the details about the man's drinking that night, because Clear's right-hand man, an individual named Mendez, had allegedly taken the driver to a strip club for his birthday, bought him a lot of alcohol, and then when the guy was wasted and took off, he tipped off Hunt when the man left and was driving. Hunt then makes the arrest. And later, the driver hires Clear's firm. The bribe flows through. Hunt no-shows to court. Case dismissed. Hunt even admitted to also receiving personal perks like wheels, tires, a lift kit for his Jeep, and et cetera in cooperation for this, or with this. This wasn't a few rogue cops either. The various court documents and plea deals describe an organized racketeering conspiracy. RICO charges were used precisely because it allowed the prosecutors to reach back decades. Officers directed drivers to Clear. Clear allegedly paid the officers to tank the cases, and it became a well-oiled machine. that undermined everything the DWI had it been unit had it been legitimate was supposed to be doing. Thomas Clear pled guilty to RICO conspiracy, multiple counts of bribery and extortion. He's been disbarred. This Rick Mendez, his paralegal, also pled guilty and cooperated. Another attorney, Rudy Chavez, took the deal too. Now, on the law enforcement side, at least 10 to 15 APD officers and a Bernalillo County Sheriff's deputy had been implicated and charged. 10 officers have pled guilty so far. That's right. 10 officers have already pled guilty in this scheme, along with some of the lawyers. Okay. Names that have surfaced in the pleas and reports include Joshua Montano, Honorio Alba Jr., Louis Enkel, Neil Ellsman, Timothy McCarson, and many others. Some were longtime DWI unit at the APD veterans, longtime veterans, 15, 20, 25-year veterans, resigned. Okay. In total, around 23 people have been named in this sprawling federal RICO conspiracy, described by former U.S. Attorney Alex Ubeles as an intergenerational fraud scheme lasting more than 15 years, involving many, many officers, nearly the entire DWI unit at the Albuquerque PD. This impact was massive. When these officers were placed in the on the Brady Giglio list, hundreds of pending DWI cases were dismissed. Nearly 150 in one wave of dismissals and 200 in another. One report tracked more than 300 dropped cases total tied to these corrupt police officers. And unfortunately, some of these drivers, as I mentioned, were actually impaired and later reoffended, putting innocent lives at risk. Meanwhile, the innocent individuals who had been targeted and were wrongly arrested and caught up in this system had their lives ruined. Some lost jobs, relationships, money. Multiple victims filed lawsuits against the city and the Albuquerque PD, alleging all of these failures and cover-ups and conspiracies. Albuquerque PD claims to have made changes to how DWI cases are handled now. With all these resignations and terminations, public trust in the department took a massive hit. Now, here's the thing that lingers to this day, okay? Despite numerous guilty pleas, including from the defense attorney at the center of all this and several of the officers, no one's been sentenced. Hearings keep getting delayed and canceled and delayed and canceled, and federal prosecutors have cited a massive evidence dump, okay? And it's an ongoing investigation. The community's over here wondering, where's the accountability? This scandal festered for decades. And although I know many of our viewers are from the Midwest, but for those of you who might be from Albuquerque, New Mexico, Arizona, anywhere out there, this one hits closer to home. And if you care about police accountability, this is a case to study in how corruption can rot an entire police unit from the inside out. And again, money is at the root of all evil. So we're going to be looking at this, and I'd love you to leave your comments in the chat, and if you're on the replay, over in the comment section down below. We're gonna start off now with taking a look at the most recent news that just dropped. Okay, now this news was very interesting because we got more. We got more. So, oh look, apparently I have some things to say. I want to shout out Rebecca Ann. Hey Rebecca, thank you for the membership and the super chat saying evening guys and evening chat. And Ninja Warrior Assassin also coming in with support. Thank you, Ninja Warrior Assassin, for the $20 super chat. I appreciate all the support, y'all. Y'all keep me going, and I truly appreciate it. Look, we need to be looking at these cases and learning from them, because if it's possible in Albuquerque, where else do you think it's possible? You know, let's be real here. But let's look at how this entire police department, or at least the entire DWI unit, okay, including veteran officers going back 25 years or so, how they all got caught up in this RICO. Everyone's pooping their pants, and resignations are just happening left and right. But this was the news from just a couple days ago. I wanted to share with you guys.
A bombshell investigation revealing long-running corruption among those trusted with upholding the law. And it all started with a few tips from people who realized something wasn't right. Now we're learning what federal investigators were looking for as they pieced together the DWI corruption scheme. A key to their puzzle, what Albuquerque police officers were talking about on the phone. KRQE investigative reporter Gabrielle Burkhart combed through the first massive evidence dump from the feds.
120 plus pages just unsealed in federal court outline what investigators already knew when they were seeking wiretaps for 3 key players in the DWI corruption scheme back in 2023, eventually granting the FBI access into the cell phones of former paralegal Ricardo Rick Mendez and former APD officers Honorio Alba and Joshua Montano.
Okay, so before I let her run with it, look, this guy at the top, Rick Mendez, that's your paralegal, the assistant for the defense attorney who's at the center of this. And here are 2 of your cops. But remember, there's a whole unit involved in this. Okay, so let me let it run.
One witness after another came forward to the FBI, laying the foundation of what would become one of the state's biggest public corruption scandals.
And I was really proud of these people coming forward, because I think it takes real courage to do it.
Albuquerque attorney Damon Eli was one of those FBI tipsters in 2022 when someone arrested for DWI came to him saying they were being extorted by an Albuquerque police officer working with former defense attorney Thomas Clear III's office. Recently unsealed search warrants show by late 2023, the FBI had already interviewed a handful of witnesses, looked through financial records, secured confidential informants, and combed through lapel camera footage from 2 then Albuquerque police officers they believed were players in a DWI corruption scheme.
And that's how it happens.
Honorio Alba and Joshua Montano. Documents show the 2 communicated and set up cash payments mainly through Ricardo Rick Mendez, who at the time worked as a paralegal for Clear.
So we charged $8,500 when you could do it in payments.
And with me, you represent
$8,500. $8,500 they're getting this one guy for.
me that would guarantee that this doesn't go on my record?
Yes.
The search warrant shows Mendez and Montano exchanged many phone calls throughout the day around the time of the FBI witness's arrest in 2022. Another FBI witness told investigators,
Look at this fucking scumbag right here. This is one of your scumbags. Okay? This is one of your scumbags. He's like, yeah, just I'll go ahead and let you off the hook, but you pay this guy $5,000 to $8,000 or so, and I'm going to get a kickback $2,000 or $3,000, and we'll let you off the fucking hook. But yeah, just go ahead and pay that lawyer, and we'll make sure this doesn't go forward.
Montano stopped him for DWI in 2023. Then he got a call from Mendez personally. He says Mendez had his driver's license and offered him a deal. Pay $6,000 cash and the charges will all go away. That witness allowed the feds to access his phone.
Yeah, just look, here's what you do, right? Here's what you do. you pay me $6,500, I'll give you your license back, and then we'll just pretend this never happened. Okay? Because, protecting and serving.
When Mendez upped the price and told him, quote, "You could go to any attorney in the state and nobody's going to guarantee you off. And you can guarantee?" the witness asked Mendez. "This is what we do," Mendez replied. The feds were also onto Alba, even connecting him to a meetup where Mendez was reportedly in an APD car with Alba, while the paralegal collected thousands in cash.
Did you guys hear that? You guys hear that? So the paralegal is sitting in the police car with the corrupt officer at the time he accepts the bribe. You get it? Yeah. Me and the cop gonna meet you around the corner. You come pay me the $8,500. Yeah.
In exchange for a guaranteed court dismissal. From October 2022 to November of 2023, the feds say Mendez and Officer Montano exchanged roughly 55 phone calls and more than 800 text messages. In that same time frame, Mendez and Officer Alba exchanged approximately 45 phone calls and more than 1,600 text messages, setting up side deals to line their own pockets and extort people the officers were arresting. And this only scratched the surface of a scheme that spanned 3 decades and involved at least 3 law enforcement agencies. Gabrielle Burkhart, KRQE Investigates.
Did you hear that? Okay, did you hear that? 30 years spread out over 3 agencies in the area. So if you've ever been stopped for a DWI in Albuquerque, you might have been a victim of this, because it was damn near the entire DWI unit, right? If you ever got a DWI in Albuquerque, you probably got fucked, right?
These wiretap search warrants are just a portion of what federal investigators say are more than 1 million documents of evidence. Prosecutors say they're working to deliver that evidence to each defendant before sentencing. 2 months after those search warrants were filed in federal court, the FBI raided the homes of those suspected in this scheme.
All right. So did you hear that? Over 1 million documents in evidence. I mean, bro. Oh my God. I mean, and look, police officers' pay have really gone up. It's pretty damn high. They get a good pay. They get paid way more than teachers or firemen or anything like that, right? Police officers. So, but they got to run these side hustles and defraud the public and endanger the public because they're letting actual drunk drivers go and who knows what else. We know down in New Mexico, just like Arizona, there was a huge fentanyl and meth crisis the past 15 years, right? But I'm gonna now we'll do a little slideshow. So this KRQE has done all of the major reporting on this particular story, which is absolutely appalling. This should be national news. And why is this not national news? This should be national news, but I want to go through these slides here, because as we go through these slides, it's sort of a timeline and it's sort of a summary. So they did this little slideshow that I thought was worth sharing. Okay. So let's see. So now this is one of the douchebags here. Okay, this is Justin Hunt. Okay. Worked with the APD from 2000 to 2024. Okay, 24 years. Worked with the DWI unit from 2011 to 2015. Look at this one. I could wipe my ass with his face. Look at that. Kyle Curtis, 2000 to 2025, 25 years. 25 years. Worked with APD from 2000 to 2025. He worked with the DWI unit and in internal affairs. Can you believe it? Okay, this guy, internal affairs and scamming civilians, you know what I mean, on the highways. Kyle Curtis, I'd like to call him asswipe. Okay, we'll call him asswipe. Let's continue. Detectives in 2003 conducting APD's current internal affairs investigation were made aware of a 2003 case involving this douchebag, Thomas Clear, the attorney. The allegations were that an officer failed to appear at a hearing intentionally in order to get the case dismissed. Here's that scumbag we saw earlier. This is Joshua Montano, worked with the APD from 2005 to 2024. He started working in the DWI unit in 2017. Matthew Trahan worked with Albuquerque Police Department from 2006 to 2024. He worked in the DWI unit 2013-2018. Court documents reveal that Thomas Clear's paralegal, Rick Mendez, was involved in the case dismissal scheme beginning in 2008. He was involved in the scandal until the FBI searched Clear's office in January 2024. So, you see, he bailed. He said, fuck this, screw this shit, I'm going home. Mark Landavazo worked with Albuquerque Police Department from 2007 to 2024. He worked in the DWI unit from 2008 to 2013 and worked as the Internal Affairs Force Division Commander starting in 2021. So here's your internal affairs guy. Totally fucking corrupt, right? Internal Affairs Commander. Total corrupt. Here we have Gustavo Gomez, worked with APD from 2008 to 2025. Worked in the DWI unit from 2010 to 2013. Matthew Chavez worked with Albuquerque Police Department from 2008 to 2025. He worked in the DWI unit. Cleans up nice. Cleans up nice once you wipe all the shit off his face, right? Here we have Darren Diaguero, worked with the APD from 2009 to 2024. He worked the DWI unit from 2013 to 2019. Oh, and what does that shirt say? Instructor, Police Academy. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. He's teaching. I wonder if he's teaching his cadets how to run this scheme. I wonder if he's showing them the ropes. Now look at this guy. Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, eventual undersheriff, Johan Jareno, served in Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, DWI unit, from December 2011 to October 2019. He worked with the sheriff's office as a corrupt piece of shit until he resigned in February of 2025 because the heat was on. This is your guy you saw in the newscast there, Honorio Alba. Worked from 2014 to 2024. Started working DWI unit in 2017. Look at this guy, Harvey Johnson. I'll call him Small Johnson. Small Johnson worked with the APD from 2014 to 2024, 10 years. Started working in the DWI unit in 2021. Neil Ellsman, From 2014 to 2024, 10 years, started working in the DWI unit in 2019, corrupt officer. In 2014, okay, the Albuquerque Police Department conducted an internal affairs investigation based on a case in which officers arrested a woman for DWI and offered to get her case dismissed if she hired attorney Tom Clear. The case was later dismissed when one of the officers failed to attend a hearing. Both officers' on-body recording device videos could not be located. They destroyed the videos where they made her an offer she couldn't refuse. While the officers were disciplined for violating the policy and there was no follow-up investigation to see if there was a pattern of police conduct. I wonder why. I guess we have two people in internal affairs who are corrupt pieces of shit in on the scheme. Look at this guy. Nelson Ortiz worked with APD from 2016 to 2024, working the DWI unit from 2018 to 2021, scamming the citizens of Albuquerque out of their safety and money. Look at that guy. Whoops. There you go. What's with a tie, bro? What's with the tie? Okay. Lucas Perez worked with the APD from 2016 to 2025, disgraced officer. 2019, APD began auto-indexing all cases, which automated the assigning of evidence from OBRD to specific case numbers. That change occurred as a part of APD's court-approved settlement agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice. The automation process made the legal discovery process for court cases, including DWIs, more effective. February 2022, Mayor Keller and Chief Medina met with the Chief Justice of the New Mexico Supreme Court to discuss several issues, including pretrial interviews and hearings that were leading to a backlog of cases related to COVID. The city and police department leaders were not aware at the time that some officers were allegedly working with a defense attorney to intentionally miss interviews as a way to get these DWI cases dismissed. March 2022, State Supreme Court suspended the requirement of law enforcement officers to give pretrial witness interviews for all cases in Metro Court. Albuquerque PD also notes that dismissed DWI cases decreased between 2021 and 2023, not including the cases dismissed in the connection to the ongoing FBI investigation. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? That means to me that when they were clued into the fact that the FBI was investigating them, they knocked the shit off. Excuse me. That just meant it's chocolate time. All right, listen to this one. According to news reports, a suspect was arrested by an Albuquerque Police Department officer for DWI. He later alleged that an Albuquerque Police Department officer confiscated drugs and his driver's license during the traffic stop. He was told to expect a call after he got out of jail so he wouldn't be charged for the drugs. In June 2022, according to news reports, the FBI received a tip from local attorney Damon Ellie about a client who alleged that he was promised his case would be dismissed if he paid Thomas Clear $10,000. $10,000. The client had been arrested by DWI officer Joshua Montano months prior. This client did not pay Clear or Mendez and instead hired a different attorney. June 2022, according to APD's investigation, the FBI sent a tip to APD's Internal Affairs Division. APD's Internal Affairs Commander, Mark Landavazo, said he referred the FBI to the Citizen Police Oversight Agency. Landavazo failed to refer the allegations to criminal investigators and did not notify his chain of command about the complaint. The Citizen Police Oversight Agency's executive later said she was not notified of the complaint. So you see what happened here? The FBI sends a tip to Internal Affairs. Commander of Internal Affairs says, oh yeah, I sent this to the Oversight Agency. Oversight Agency says, nope, never got it. Meanwhile, he never refers a tip to criminal investigators either, and doesn't tell his chain of command. He buries it. He buries the FBI's tip that's coming onto his desk regarding this scam or scheme. And yeah, this is what you're left with. Right? December, an APD detective was contacted by an informant alleging that some officers with the DWI unit were getting paid to get a DWI case dismissed. In December, APD started an intelligence investigation in an attempt to corroborate information from that informant. The detective reviewed dispatch information for 7 officers with the DWI unit, as well as DWI stops from December in the 3 locations mentioned by the informant. However, detective said, oh, nothing to see here, nothing suspicious. Now, the Chief Medina, decides to keep the information confidential and limited to the detective investigating the allegations. Deputy Chief and his commander, so that anyone allegedly, he keeps the information confidential so that anyone allegedly involved would not be aware. Chief Medina directed Deputy Chief Barker to refer the allegations to the FBI if the detective discovered corroborating information. Chief Medina took steps to look for trends involving DWI investigations in early 2023. Although the Superintendent of Police Reform oversees the Internal Affairs Division, Chief Medina requested to get weekly updates of all internal affair cases, along with updates from area commanders to look for any patterns. The FBI learned from the district attorney's office about an incident in which someone made a statement during a court hearing that suggested wrongdoing in the DWI unit. FBI contacted Chief Medina and informed him about its own investigation, and Chief Medina informed the FBI about the tip APD got in December. The FBI took the lead on the investigation, and Chief Medina then began offering resources to help with the investigation. November, a court administrator forwarded another complaint about DWI officer Alba to the Citizen Police Oversight Agency. The complaint outlined allegations from a former court employee who said the officer offered to put him in contact with a specific attorney to ensure that no court case would be filed in court. APD's command staff then met with the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office to discuss how to handle the complaint against Officer Alba and the possibility that Officer Alba might learn about the FBI investigation. APD requested that the CPOA close its investigation into Officer Alba because of the ongoing FBI investigation. In December of 2023, an APD officer filed a harassment complaint to APD's Human Resources Division about one of the former DWI officers who was later put on administrative leave as part of the DWI investigation. The city contracted with the law firm to conduct the HR investigation. According to news reports, the U.S. Attorney's Office informed the District Attorney's Office about the federal investigation because of the likely consequences of active DWI cases involving officers. The FBI met with APD leaders to discuss the District Attorney's decision to dismiss all the DWI cases scheduled for the following day. They developed a plan for APD to assist with securing APD vehicles and property to expedite the FBI's efforts to execute search warrants. On January 18th, 2024, the FBI executed search warrants at the homes of APD officers and Clear's law offices. The district attorney dismissed 144 cases involving 4 officers. On January 23rd, the APD launched its administrative investigation, notified 4 officers that they were targets of the investigation, and transferred 1 lieutenant pending the investigation. Chief Medina then sent a letter to the Public Defender Commission about Clear's role as chairman. Okay. Where's my sound effects? Oh my God. Remember I said highly prominent defense attorney? Thomas Clear is chairman of the Public Defender Commission. On January 31st, 2024, APD placed 3 more officers on administrative leave and named Commander Kyle Hartsock as the lead of the internal investigation. Chief Medina sent a letter to Albuquerque City Council about the investigation in February 2024. February 7th, APD Lieutenant Justin Hunt resigned. Okay. February 13th, 2024, APD Internal Affairs Division Commander Mark Landavazo was placed on administrative leave. February 16, Albuquerque Police expands the internal investigation. Okay. February 29, 2024, Officer Onario Alba resigns. March 13th, Officer Harvey Johnson resigns. March 15th, Officer Nelson Ortiz resigns. March 20th, Officer Joshua Montano resigns. April 30th, Officer Darren Diaguero retires. May 8th, Officer Matthew Trahan placed on administrative leave. July 31st, Neil Elsman resigns. August 1st, Commander Mark Landavazo is terminated. October 16, Internal Affairs Force Division Commander Gustavo Gomez is placed on administrative leave. October 19, 2024, Officer Matthew Trahan retires. January 23rd, 2025, Deputy Jeff Hammerl was put on administrative leave. January 24th, Clear's paralegal Rick Mendez was the first person to plead guilty in the scandal. He pled guilty to 8 counts. Okay, listen to this. RICO conspiracy. I'm sorry, I hadn't realized I had minimized that. There you go. RICO conspiracy, 5 counts of bribery, 2 counts of extortion. Okay. RICO, 5 counts, 2 counts. He admitted he would contact the alleged DWI offenders and tell them they could get off the hook if they paid him several $1,000s in cash. Well, sounds more like 5 to 10,000. He pled guilty to 8 charges in federal court, including conspiracy, bribery of police officer, receiving federal funds, and interfering with commerce by extortion. January 24, 2025, APD Lieutenant Matthew Chavez is placed on administrative leave. Lieutenant Kyle Curtis placed on administrative leave. Lieutenant Kyle Curtis then resigns or retires. February 7th, 2025, Joshua Montano and Onario Alba were the first 2 officers to plead guilty. They both pled guilty to RICO conspiracy, 5 counts of bribery, extortion, and conspiracy to commit extortion. February 12th, 2025, Tom Clear, attorney, pleads guilty to 9 federal charges, okay? This is your chairman of the Public Defender's Commission pleading guilty to RICO conspiracy, 5 counts of bribery, 3 counts of aiding and abetting, okay? 5 counts of bribery, RICO conspiracy, 3 counts of aiding and abetting. He was a fourth person and now the only attorney to take the plea deal. February 12th, APD Officer Neil Ellsman, the 3rd officer, 5th person to total, pleas. He pled guilty to conspiracy to commit extortion, and 3 counts of bribery. February 14th, New Mexico State Police Sergeant Toby LaFave is placed on administrative leave, the first New Mexico State Police Sergeant to be put on leave in relation to this scandal. So now you got the New Mexico State Police now in on this. Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office Undersheriff Johan Jareno resigns. Jareno was the first from BCSO to resign under the investigation for connection to the federal DWI dismissal investigation. His co-worker, BCSO Deputy Jeff Hammerl, on February 25th, 2025, resigns and pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit extortion, 2 counts of extortion, 2 counts of bribery. Hammerl was the 6th person total to plea and the only one from BCSO. March 10th, 2025, defense attorney Rudolph Rudy Chavez was publicly named and accused of playing a role in this DWI scandal. He's the 2nd attorney identified in this investigation now. March 24th, APD officer Nelson Ortiz pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit interference by commerce or with commerce by extortion under the color of official right. Ortiz was the 7th person total to plea and the 4th from the police department. March 24th, 2025, APD Sergeant Lucas Perez was placed on administrative leave. He resigns the next day, March 25th, 2025. March 25th, APD Deputy Commander Gustavo Gomez is terminated. March 25th, APD Lieutenant Matthew Chavez is terminated. April 29th, APD Officer Harvey Johnson pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit extortion. Johnson was the 8th person total to plea and the 5th from APD. Now, this article stops here, so this slideshow stops here, okay? But it's not the end of the story. Right, so check this one out. What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Thanks for coming in. All right. More than 150 DWI cases dismissed as part of a federal public corruption probe in New Mexico, right? Albuquerque. More than 150 cases. This is January 2024. More than 150 cases alleging that motorists drove while intoxicated have been dismissed as part of a federal public corruption investigation, authorities said. The FBI investigation led the Second Judicial District Attorney's Office in Albuquerque to dismiss 152 misdemeanor DWI cases as of Friday morning, the office said. We did this in deference to an ongoing federal investigation, said Nancy Laughlin, a spokeswoman for the office. Search warrants were served at multiple locations this week, including at homes of at least 3 Albuquerque police departments. 3 Albuquerque. This is bothering me. Sorry about this, Mr. David Rogers. All right, there we go. All right, so let's read it. I'm going to get it together, guys. I tell you I don't feel well. Okay, boom. Search warrants, including homes of at least 3 Albuquerque police officers. Okay. 3 Albuquerque police officers combined filed 136 of the 152 DWI cases. At least 107 of those were filed last year. Some officers have been placed on administrative leave and others resigned, said Albuquerque police spokesperson. Okay. No stone unturned. No stone unturned. Check this out. No stone unturned. Albuquerque police officer or police chief vows thorough investigation of corruption allegations. There he is. February 2024. The police chief in New Mexico's largest city vowed Friday that the Albuquerque Police Department will leave no stone unturned as it moves ahead with an internal investigation into allegations of possible corruption within the driving while intoxicated unit. No, I would say absolute corruption. Chief Harold Medina declined to give many specifics during a news conference Friday, saying he didn't want to compromise the work being done by his agency or the FBI. Still, he tried to ease public concerns by saying the department has been working with the DA's office to streamline the process for flagging when officers fail to appear in court for those cases in which a motorist is suspected of driving drunk or impaired. Medina shared a timeline of DWI cases dating back to 2015. He said changes in how the department and prosecutors handle such cases has led to fewer dismissals. Okay. Look at this statistic. In 2019, the dismissal rate topped 43%. Last year, only 3% of the 1,000 cases were dismissed. What does that sound like? What does that sound like? 40%? Were they literally ushering 40%? Were they extorting 40% of those cases? I wonder if they were extorting 40% of the DWI stops. So let's see, 400 cases a year they're extorting for 10,000 each. What are those numbers? Come on, guys, you guys are smart. So let's say they're getting they're skimming 40% of these. Okay, 40%. So let's say 40%, that's 400 cases times $10,000 each. All right. FBI Chief Medina speak on DWI scandal involving APD, BCSO, and New Mexico State Police. we wouldn't go and put something in, especially an affidavit, if we didn't think that there was going to be more to it, Special Agent in Charge Raul Bujanda said. This is February 2025. Albuquerque, New Mexico, federal documents reveal new details in the DWI scandal, invoking the Albuquerque Police Department, Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, and New Mexico State Police. KOAT spoke with FBI Special Agent in Charge Raul Bujanda and Albuquerque Police Chief Harold Medina on the latest developments in the federal investigation. According to the federal indictment, officers and deputies from APD, BCSO, and New Mexico State Police worked alongside attorney Thomas Clare III and his private investigator, Ricardo Mendez, in a DWI enterprise to dismiss cases involving drivers suspected of DWI in exchange for money. On Friday, January 24th, Mendez pled guilty in federal court to 8 charges, including conspiracy. He's the first to plead guilty since the corruption scandal for nearly 2 decades has come to light. Medina said, since at least 2008, let me see if I can blow this up. Okay, since at least 2008, I admit that I conspired with co-conspirator 1, as well as sworn law enforcement officers and deputies with the Albuquerque Police Department, New Mexico State Police, and Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office to engage in a scheme that targeted persons arrested for DWI. Under the scheme, co-conspirator 1, the officers and I would arrange for the officer members to intentionally fail to appear at required criminal and administrative settings associated with the DWI-related arrests, allowing co-conspirator 1 to move to dismiss the proceedings. Mendez wrote as part of the plea agreement. As of Wednesday, January 29, Clare has not been charged with the crime. APD has placed a total of 12 former DWI officers on leave as part of its investigation. 10 of those officers have resigned, retired, or been terminated. You guys see that? You guys see that? There you go. 10 officers resigned, retired. There they are. 12 on leave, 10 have resigned, retired, or been terminated. Mendez pled guilty to racketeering, bribery of an agent, receiving federal funds, aiding and abetting, interference with commerce by extortion under color of official right and conspiracy. Read the full plea agreement here. I think I'll take that. Okay. Obviously, this is part of an ongoing investigation. Will he be the last? No. Mendez played a bigger role in that, right? He almost played the role of recruiter, and that's unfortunate because it seemed from what we've learned through the investigation that he was very successful at it. He decided, even though he was part of this and part of the scheme, part of the criminal enterprise, he decided to eventually do the right thing, which is come forward, which is not easy to do. What would you say in this case? Pretty much he's cooperating. He's definitely helping us with the investigation. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So you got an inner guy. You got somebody in there, right? You have the middleman who's decided he's going to help on out. Okay, I think we're done with this one. What's up to everybody coming in? I appreciate you guys coming in. Let's see. Now remember that, let me refresh you guys because I know it's hard to keep track of this, right? So that was February 2025. Okay. Now we're going to jump back to March and April 2024. DWI scandal, APD officers resigning rather than talking. Ooh. It was our job to help law enforcement. It's our job to help law enforcement. Well, here we go. All right. So here we go. Look what we got here. We got APD officers resigning rather than talking. Resigning rather than talking. One after another, like dominoes, Albuquerque police officers have decided to give up their badge rather than be interviewed by internal affairs. All of this happening during a federal internal investigation, right? KRQE Investigate sat down with APD Chief Harold Medina to ask how officers will be held accountable if they keep walking away. Medina says, I was not shocked that any of them resigned and that they weren't going to make a statement to us. Five officers have resigned from APD. They're all targets of internal affairs investigations and all connected to the federal investigation. KRQE learned this surrounds accusations officers were getting paid to get DWI cases dismissed. Lieutenant Justin Hunt resigned in February after 24 years with the department. Onario Alba resigned that same month after 10 years. This month, Harvey Johnson and Nelson Ortiz resigned after serving a combined 18 years. And the latest to resign just last week was Officer Joshua Montano. He's been with Albuquerque Police Department for nearly 20 years. Each of the five officers turned their badge in before an internal affairs investigator could review them about possible or interview them about possible involvement in the corruption. It looks horrible on the individual officer, and I think it looks bad and makes them appear guilty, Chief Medina explained. No shit. But I also know that an inconsistent statement or anything they've been told the FBI before could be a federal charge for lying to an FBI agent. So they have a lot at stake here. Chief Medina believes those officers are following an attorney's advice. He claims completing the investigation is not only possible, but a priority with other witness interviews. Meanwhile, 6th Officer Commander of Internal Affairs remains on administrative leave. How far could this scheme have gone? KRQE asked Chief Medina if the alleged scheme could go beyond these 6 officers. Without a doubt, we're seeing that the possibility is there, and we're currently still working through. A lot of individuals have retired, Medina explained. And if those officers were part of a corruption scheme, it raises the question, how do you ensure to the public that officers will be held accountable when it seems likely some of them have quietly resigned or retired? We can't force them to stay here until we terminate them, says Medina, but these individuals have immensely lost. There are some that are extremely close to retirement that are losing out, and we haven't even gotten to the point of criminal accountability. Financially, Medina said they're losing out on paychecks and a full career with retirement benefits. And when the FBI completes its investigation, there could be federal criminal charges. We may not ever know the full truth and get every single member, but we will do our due diligence to ensure that there's accountability to anybody who wore this uniform and badge in the past. The federal investigation also prompted the Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office to dismiss more than 200 pending criminal cases, mostly DWIs, that the 5 officers were connected to. KRQE Investigates uncovered red flags in some of those cases, connecting certain officers' DWI arrests with defense attorney Thomas Clear's office, whose home was raided by the feds. One case involving an arrest conducted by Officer Montano involved a voicemail and clandestine recording with a paralegal that the DWI defendant said revealed more about how the scheme may have worked. Below is a transcript of a portion of DWI defendant Smith's interaction with the man he said was Rick Mendez, Thomas Clear's paralegal. All right, check this out. Paralegal, if you need to get off this, Smith, I do. Paralegal, okay, you're at the right place. If you're one of those people that can live with it, then go hire a cheap attorney. We're not the cheapest. The part where you read between the lines is some sort of benefits to the officer from the attorney who charges well above market rate, said Leon Howard, deputy director for ACLU, New Mexico. KRQE obtained a copy of Officer Montano's resignation letter, which states the issues I get myself caught up with in the DWI unit were generational. For him to talk, he said he needed not be the city's scapegoat for its own failures. Montano went on to write, I take responsibility for my actions. However, the officer didn't elaborate. I gave my commitment to the public. No stone will go unturned, Medina told KRQE. Chief credits DOJ reform for exposing wrongdoing. Nearly a decade into being under the watch of DOJ in a settlement agreement focused on reform, APD is closer than ever to full compliance, says APD. Since the news of the DWI scandal broke, critics have asked how this wasn't brought to light earlier. A lot of changes we made through our reform process, actually, I think in the end is going to explain quite a bit as to how this scheme was forced to change to the point where it became exposed. When asked if learning anything that surprised him through this process, Medina replied, I've learned that politics are rough, and God put me in this position, and I'm in a good place in my life and my career where I'm here to do the right thing. But it has without a doubt been probably the most challenging 3 months of my 29 years in law enforcement. Medina said he's already filed police misconduct reports with the State Law Enforcement Academy, which could impact those law enforcement officers' certifications. He said the public will hear about the results when APD's internal investigation is complete. Advocate says attorney APD officers spit in the face of DWI victims. It's an experience countless New Mexicans share, their lives impacted by drunk driving. We were surprised when they didn't show up, but the phone call came in, I don't know, 11:30, 12, something like that. Kent Craven said. On Christmas Eve in '92, he, his wife, and kids were waiting for Craven's brother to stop by with his wife and 3 daughters for a Christmas Carol sing-along, but the family of 5 never showed up. I will tell you that down to the minute, I remember it well, Craven said. The details of the night Gordon House sped 90 miles per hour in the wrong direction on I-40 and plowed into Craven's family, killing his sister-in-law and 3 young nieces and severely injuring his brother. Doesn't feel like 30 years ago. It was yesterday. It was yesterday, he explained. Try to think of a worse scenario. On Christmas Eve, with 3 girls and their parents had just gone up 9 Mile Hill to look back at the lights and say, Merry Christmas, this is what Jesus has given us. The crash changed the course of Craven's life. and shaped New Mexico's drinking and driving laws. Cravens noted it became a real cry from the community to do something. His brother's mother-in-law jumped right in. Nadine Milford's name became synonymous with DWI reform. She worked tirelessly with legislature to shut down drive-through liquor stores and make a fourth DWI a felony. Cravens became a lawmaker, spending more than a decade in the Senate. He's most proud of getting a law passed in the early 2000s that requires interlock devices on offenders' cars. It has been a long time, and it seems like you have to take a giant step backward. Craven is referring to the FBI's investigation into a scheme that KRQE learned centers on accusations officers were paid to get DWI cases dismissed. Knowing the feds are zeroed in on at least one attorney, Thomas Clear III, KRQE investigates sifted through 6 years of his DWI court cases to find out how and why his clients' cases were dismissed. From 2018 to 2023, Thomas Clear's average dismissal rate was 63.3%. That's more than double the typical dismissal rate. Okay, I want to chime in here because let's do some mathing again with the statistics. So think about it. We were looking back where, let's say 30, 40%, okay, 30, 40% dismissals, right? His own record is he's getting 63% of his cases dismissed. Two-thirds. You see how odd the statistical anomalies are there? So the court's dismissing 40% of the cases, maybe 30, 40%. This attorney, he's getting 60 to 65% of his cases dismissed. More than double the typical dismissal rate. Investigative team also looked at specifically at the number of cases he had with the 4 Albuquerque police officers whose credibility has been called into question, tied to the federal investigation. Throughout the past 6 years, 25 of his clients pulled over by Honorio Alba Jr. had their cases dismissed. So did the 4 officer Harvey Johnson handled. 31 of the 36 people Officer Montano arrested saw dismissals, and 5 of the 6 cases were dismissed. Jeez. Thomas Clear had a 91.5% dismissal rate with these 4 officers. So if these officers were the arresting officers, and this lawyer is hired, 90% dismissal rate. 91.5% dismissal rate. Attorney Clear DWI cases. Montano, 31 of 36 dismissed. Alba, 25 of 25 dismissed. Johnson, 4 of 4 dismissed. Ortiz, 5 of 6 dismissed. Yeah, I would say that's upwards of 90%, damn near 100. I don't know about you guys. This is pretty egregious to me. Let me see if I can blow that up and show you the graphic. Oh, of course it's not going to cooperate. Look at that. I'm going to zoom it out a bit. All right, sorry, it was a little refreshment break. Let me move on. I'm kind of getting lost here. So if one of those officers pulled you over and you hired attorney Clear, your odds of not getting prosecuted seemed pretty good. Only 10% of the cases handled by Clear and one of these officers ended up in prosecution. Court records show the officers were repeatedly not showing up to pretrial interviews and hearings, which often led to the case being dragged out too close to the 6-month time limit. That leaves no other option than to dismiss. Court documents mention in some cases, Alba and Montano even failed to show up on Zoom. For other reasons for Montano's 31 case dismissals include a flat tire and not handing over evidence. Some dismissals are reasonable when officers are out sick, but community experts say the dismissal rates are concerningly high. They owe this community a lot for this behavior. Go serve your time. I hope they get convicted. This is a crime. Dear God, wow, Linda Atkinson said. KRQE brought the 6 years of data to Atkinson, who has run the DWI Resource Center since the 1990s. Her work involves presenting research-based solutions on how to curb New Mexico's drunk driving problem. Disgusting, despicable, Atkinson said. Look through the data, and to me, it really comes down to the law keepers or the lawbreakers. In those 6 years, the 4 APD officers pulled over a total of 71 people who then hired attorney Clear, and a judge dismissed their case. KRQE Investigates went through each of those defendants' court records and found 18 of them had previous DWI convictions. 18 of them had previous DWIs. I'm trying to highlight it. Shit. Yeah. And look at this. 10 defendants who had their cases dismissed face new DWI charges. You see? 18 had previous of the 71, and 10 of the 71 got pulled over again with the DWI. It all makes sense, Atkinson said. I just start getting so angry looking at this and thinking 30 years back. Yep, no change. Atkinson said when guilty drunk drivers are let off the hook, there's no true deterrent. And next time they get behind the wheel intoxicated, they may not just be hurting themselves. Pretty corrupt, eh? Yeah, where's your faith in the system? I mean, where's anybody's faith in the system? And you talk to people who have lost loved ones. That's the part that makes it hard for me. It was a conscious decision to just spit in the face of everybody who's ever had a tragedy in their life. And there are thousands of families, and the stories, man, it's hard. At this point, the feds have not criminally charged attorney Thomas Clear or any of the 4 officers, blah, 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 blah. So this is older news, okay? Let's move on. All right. Next up. APD lieutenant named in DWI scandal, accused of abusing child in 2016. That's a face you'd like to punch. One of the highest ranking Albuquerque police officers under federal investigation for taking bribes to torpedo DWI cases was under investigation nearly a decade ago. Should Justin Hunt have been kicked off the force before he ever even rose to lieutenant? A 2016 incident report shows Hunt was accused of abusing his child, and his ex-wife reported him to be dangerous. But the case went nowhere, and Hunt kept his job at the Albuquerque Police Department. KRQE Investigates asked the department how that happened. Lapel camera footage from the February 2016 call for service showed Albuquerque police responding to the home of Hunt's ex-wife's family member. They told police they believed Hunt abused his then 4-year-old son. When we changed him, he had a black and blue handprint here and there on his back, the family member reported. That's your child abuser right there. At that point, Hunt had been divorced for little more than a year. The family told the responding officers that Hunt had custody of the boy for the past 2 days and caused the bruising. We asked him where it was from. He said, "Daddy hit me 5 times," a family member told APD. They also claimed this happened before, and they called police then too. "We've gone through this 3 times, 4 times already," the family member said. That's why this time the family member requested a sergeant respond. APD confirmed that the family reported allegations against Hunt in 2015. However, the responding officer did not believe a crime occurred. So the incident was only forwarded to the Children, Youth, and Families Department. This time, a police report was written and forwarded to the Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office. It was called a simple assault, but according to court records, no charges were ever filed against Hunt for simple assault on a 4-year-old. Even so, it would be typical for departments to look into a report like this involving one of its own officers. On the scene, Hunt's ex-wife asked about that. She wanted to know whether an internal affairs investigation would be open. APD confirmed the internal affairs unit did not open an investigation into the allegations. A spokesperson commented, "There's no excuse for the failure to conduct an internal investigation into child abuse of your 4-year-old, dude." The only mention KRQE Investigates found of this incident was in a domestic violence petition requesting a restraining order against Hunt. Lapel video from February 2016 showed officers helping the ex-wife file a report after a police report was taken. Because the department did not open an internal affairs investigation and no criminal charges were filed, the state's licensing board was never notified. If it had been, Hunt's law enforcement certification could have been revoked. Instead, over the next 8 years, Hunt would rise through the ranks to sergeant and then lieutenant. In a statement, now the Albuquerque Police Department says 8 years later, APD is a fundamentally different department where accountability and public trust are top priorities. Hunt resigned from the Albuquerque Police Department in February 2024, 5 days after being placed on administrative leave. He's one of the 10 APD officers who worked in the DWI unit and are under federal investigation accused of being paid to get DWIs dismissed. All right. Private investigator for the defense admitted to guilt in offering bribes to get intoxicated drivers off the hook. Okay. Ricardo Mendez pled guilty to a slew of federal charges, including racketeering and bribery. Mendez took part in a years-long scheme between a law firm he worked for that specialized in defending those charged with drunk driving and the Albuquerque PD, New Mexico State Police, and Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. Mendez admitted that since 2008, he had been offering gifts and thousands of dollars in bribes to officers in exchange for having his clients' cases dismissed. Gifts and thousands of dollars in bribes since 2008. I admit that since at least 2008, this DWI scheme I participated in constituted an enterprise, the DWI enterprise, that engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity that included multiple acts of bribery, chargeable under New Mexico state law, as well as multiple acts of interference commerce by extortion, Mendez wrote in his plea. Dubbed the driving while intoxicated enterprise, the scheme would allow offenders who drove while intoxicated to get off scot-free. Clients would pay Mendez or his associate an attorney retainer fee in cash, court record said. Then Mendez would pay officers in cash $5,000 or more, okay? Or in the forms of gifts or legal services to not appear. Hello? So you saw he's asking this drunk driver for $8,500, $10,000 in that range. He gets to $8,500 to $10,000. Then he flips the $5,000 back onto the officer. Mendez would pay officers in cash $5,000 or more, or in the form of gifts or legal services to not appear in court. Okay, leading to the dismissal of the case. As the scheme continued, officers started referring DWI cases to Mendez and his associate with the ask of increased payments. I admit that when drivers avoid criminal culpability for DWI, they become more likely to drive while intoxicated in the future. And the more often a person drives while intoxicated, the more likely they are to have an accident, Mendez said in his plea. According to documents, the probe began following a stop by one of the officers in August 2023. He allegedly told the driver that he should contact a specific attorney who, if hired, would make sure the police department would not file a case in court. Because he's working with the prosecutors, prosecutors recommended a reduced sentence for Mendez as part of a plea deal. Albuquerque PD's officers had the largest share of members, according to Mendez's admission. Albuquerque Police Department Chief Harold Medina vowed to conduct an internal investigation last February. Since then, over a dozen officers have resigned, been placed on administrative leave, been terminated, or temporarily reassigned. Oh, no. Oh, my God. Corruption has no place in law enforcement, and the BCSO will fully cooperate with its federal partners, Sheriff John Allen said in a statement. Allen also confirmed that he has been in contact with the FBI regarding the reported involvement of a deputy in the scheme. Two former officers working under the Albuquerque Police Department's DWI unit acknowledged conspiring with Ricardo Mendez in a years-long scheme. Federal investigators say that Menendez's law firm offered gifts and thousands of dollars in bribes to officers in exchange for having his clients' cases dismissed. Joshua Montano and Oranio Alba signed agreements to plead guilty and cooperate with investigators in exchange for leniency on charges that might otherwise result in lengthy prison sentences. Clients would pay Mendez or his associate an attorney retainer fee in cash, court records say. Then Mendez would pay officers in cash $5,000 or more to not appear in court or to lose the shit. Over a dozen officers have either resigned, been placed on administrative leave, terminated, or temporarily reassigned. Do you realize? Let me do my Delphi knock-in right now. I'm going to do my Delphi jump-in, my Delphi link. Okay. Delphi link. Here go the bloodlusters. Do you realize how many people would have to be in on it? Do you realize how many people would have to be involved for a cover-up like that? Do you realize? I do. On January 18, 2025, it was 1 year since the public learned about Fed agents raiding the homes of Albuquerque police officers. It was part of an FBI investigation into public corruption scheme involving officers accused of taking money to get cases dismissed. A newly uncovered document titled Possible Corruption Involving an Albuquerque Police Department Officer and an Attorney's Office in Albuquerque reveals details of what passed along to the feds back in April 2022. The day they came in, I let the FBI know, and I didn't contact APD because they obviously have a conflict. Deputy Attorney Damon Ellie wrote or told KRQE during an interview. Ellie explained how two people who didn't know each other came into him with similar stories, allegations of a corruption scheme involving these officers. Ellie said he passed along the info to the FBI, but wouldn't go into details during his interview with News 13. I have to be careful about what I'm saying in terms of, because there hasn't been an indictment yet. That is still true. No one has been criminally charged, but in combing through public records attached to the lawsuit filed in district court, KRQE Investigates learned more about Ellie's tip to the feds nearly 3 years ago. It shows the person who told Ellie about it was arrested for DWI by APD in April 22. The unnamed tipster notes an APD officer, Montano, pulled him aside, calling him lucky. An officer found mushrooms on him and said he would not get charged for them. The tip states Montano then told the person he could expect a call after he got out. The tipster said his driver's license was then confiscated by police. The unnamed tipster stated Rick Mendez did call, inviting him to attorney Tom Clear's office. Okay? It was in that office the person claims Mendez, Clear's paralegal, had his confiscated driver's license and said he'd return it for a price, $10,000, in exchange for charges against him dropped. The tip states Mendez even offered a payment plan, $5,000 up front with monthly payments of $1,000. The tip goes on to state Clear was in and out of the room while Mendez had this conversation. Clear came in and showed the mushrooms been caught with, showed him the mushrooms he'd been caught with were a controlled substance to demonstrate he could still be charged, the tip states. It's a similar MO to the story KRQE Investigates reported last year when a man named Carlos Smith came forward. I knew something wasn't right, Smith told KRQE Investigates during an interview. He too was called by APD officer Joshua Montano after a DWI. I knew from that moment I needed to document everything, and I did. A voicemail to Smith from Officer Montano reveals the apparent collateral in this case. Smith's bracelet he was told he could retrieve at Attorney Clear's office. Hey, Carlos, this is Officer Montano with the APD. The officer's voice is heard on Smith's voice message inbox. I was just giving you a call because I don't know if you realize, but I'm sure you do, that some of your jewelry was missing from property from Sunday evening. And it looks like the PTC officers didn't put that in your bag, but I have it. Smith also hit record during an interaction he said he had with Mendez at Clear's office, where he too claims he was offered a guarantee for a price. Below is a transcript. We're not the cheapest, okay, so we could charge $8,500 and you could do it in payments. And with you representing me, that would guarantee this doesn't go on my record? Yes. Smith and the ACLU are now suing APD for civil rights violations, along with 9 now former officers, including Joshua Montano, the city of Albuquerque Chief Harold Medina, Attorney Clear, and his paralegal Mendez. They are taking people's belongings and forcing them to have interactions with private attorneys in order to facilitate obtaining money for the scheme, explained Taylor Smith. And so it all comes down to this is essentially a mob-like practice that's being perpetrated by our officers. Smith's case, along with roughly 200 other DWI cases, were later dismissed by the DA's office due to officer credibility issues. Today, nearly 1 year since news broke of the federal investigation, Smith, the ACLU, and the community are waiting on word from the feds about its finding, waiting for closure and accountability. This is damaging to our legal system as a whole, said Leon Howard. And without this type of accountability, there's not going to be any trust or faith that people truly do get due process in our state. So far, no one's been criminally charged in the public corruption scandal. At least 8 officers have resigned or retired rather than be interviewed by internal affairs. 1 commander was fired by APD and another officer remains on leave. Two former officers plead guilty in DWI scheme. There's your punchable faces. Two former Albuquerque police officers have copped a plea deal. Joshua Montano and Onario Alba Jr. admit they took bribes for many years to make sure some drunk driving cases got tossed out. They claim they're not even close to being the only law enforcement who should be held accountable. At this point, 3 people have taken deals in the year-long federal investigation. Prosecutors say be prepared for more. There's a lot of disturbing ironies with the 2 officers. One was hurt in a DWI crash, and the other won an award from Mothers Against Drunk Driving for his work in the DWI unit. You can't make this shit up. You cannot make this up. Listen to this, y'all. Look. Joshua Montano. In 2022, Montano was severely injured when a drunk driver hit him. The community raised more than $17,000 for him through a GoFundMe. But by that time, Montano now admits he was knee-deep in the DWI bribery scheme. Can you believe it? On Friday, he pled guilty to his role, admitting taking bribes in exchange for letting suspected drunk drivers go free. He had been doing this since 2017. He was the fifth officer to resign from Albuquerque PD in March 2024 after Internal Affairs tried to interview him multiple times. KOB4 reached out to Montano's lawyer, Risa Rocco. In a statement, she says in part, Montano deeply regrets his actions and is deeply remorseful, and he apologizes to the community, his friends, and family. Okay, Onario Alba Jr., the other former APD officer, pleading guilty Friday is Onario Alba Jr. In 2023, New Mexico nonprofit Mothers Against Drunk Driving named Alba Officer of the Year. By this time, he was already heavily involved in the scandal. Okay, Mothers Against Drunk Driving is awarding him Officer of the Year when he's already knee deep in this scandal. I mean, the irony. I can't believe, it's like all of these Delphi cops giving themselves awards. They all got awards. Oh, great job. Oh, Judge Cole, she goes up. Holman goes up. Everyone gets awards for everyone. Everyone gets a trophy. According to his plea agreement, he began taking bribes in 2018 to get DWIs thrown out, including cash, jewelry, even tires. He resigned from APD in February before his internal affairs interview. Montano and Alba pled guilty to federal racketeering, bribery, extortion, and conspiracy charges. They both admit they would arrest someone suspected of DWI but wouldn't charge or book them. Instead, they would send him to Rick Mendez, an Albuquerque paralegal who worked for Thomas Clear. Montano and Alba Jr. face up to 110 years in prison, but U.S. Attorney says it's not that simple. That's where a judge's discretion comes in. Deciding what the appropriate sentence is for a person is based upon their specific conduct, not just on global charges. U.S. Attorney Ubalez also shared this scandal has been going on since 2007, so more than 17 years. For that reason, we could expect more charges to come. This is clearly intergenerational within the DWI unit, and you can anticipate that we will keep pursuing that intergenerational conduct as far back as we can. APD Chief Harold Medina says he hopes the others who were involved in this scheme pay close attention to the prison sentences the officers agreed to serve in exchange for their cooperation. These officers make the second and third suspects to take a plea deal in this investigation. Mendez is facing up to 110 years in prison for all the charges he's pled guilty to, but it's likely he'll get less. Since 2008, he says him and Clear would reportedly charge DWI suspects arrested by officers in this scheme thousands of dollars to get the charges dismissed. Those officers would get gifts and not show up to court, so the cases would be thrown out. Former APD officer Montano pulled over Carlos Sandoval Smith in 2023. He's now suing over this investigation. He says instead of getting a speeding ticket, Montano initiated a DWI stop and ultimately took him to jail. Smith claims Montano told him he had an attorney friend who could make the charge go away. All three plea deals strongly implicate Clear's alleged role in this scheme. He's not facing any charges at this point, but he's been a focal point of the investigation for a year. In fact, the FBI raided his home and local law office last year when these allegations went public. So far, none of the plea deals name Clear, but our reporting indicates he's at least one local attorney wrapped up in this. Just recently, federal and state courts filed motions asking Clear to explain why he shouldn't be punished as a member of the bar for allegations he's facing. This week, he responded to the federal court saying he deactivated himself as an attorney last summer, so essentially the court can't hold him accountable. It's kind of like resigning before you get fired. He still has to respond to state court for the same issue. All right. And we keep going. Let's see, what is this? This is a different reporting of the same situation with the recording. Check this out. Okay, it says, it's talking about that video that was referenced in the prior, and it says when Carlos Sandoval Smith was pulled over for speeding, the reason for the initial stop didn't stick. Montano had Sandoval Smith get out of the car and complete a series of field sobriety tests. Sandoval Smith blew below the legal limit twice and was booked into jail. One of his attorneys, Taylor Smith, said Montano then pointed his client in the direction of Thomas Clear. Throughout the entire interaction with Officer Montano, Mr. Smith was cooperative. He answered his questions. He was honest. He participated in a brief field sobriety test, and he passed and was ultimately booked into MDC and taken to jail. So think about this. I want to show the guy's face. Hold on. Okay, so this guy, he gets pulled over for speeding. Right? Pulled over for speeding.
New video of a DWI arrest and a shocking recording between the suspect in this case and a local attorney. Now, this is all part of the DWI deception scandal involving APD officers and dismissed cases.
Now, the ACLU is representing the man who was pulled over, and they say their client was being extorted. Felipe Romero has been digging through hours of footage and has this story.
We take you back to June 25th of 2023. Carlos Sandoval Smith was in the driver's seat when he was pulled over by an APD officer.
I'm also not telling the APD stop for speeding.
But the reason for the initial stop doesn't stick.
Someone was asking me that's an alcohol. It was yesterday.
Officer Montano has Sandoval Smith get out of the car and complete a series of field sobriety tests.
Throughout the entire interaction with Officer Montano, Mr. Smith was cooperative. He, answered the.
So okay. So the guy's not drunk. He's not drunk. He was speeding a little. He gets pulled over. Officer doesn't charge him for speeding because that's not part of the scheme. Officer says you're drunk driving. He does the field sobriety tests and passes them. He blows below the legal limit a couple times. Still gets arrested. Right? Still gets arrested. Charged with DWI. And then the cop says, hey, you go get this lawyer that I'm going to tell you to go pay. All this goes away, bro. See, he blew below the legal limit twice and was booked into jail. Throughout the entire interaction, he was cooperative, answered questions. He wasn't drunk. He was honest. He passed the field sobriety test. He blew below the legal limit twice. So he says to this corrupt Mendez, he says, what's your opinion, my next best step to try and not get this on my record? What do you recommend I do? Here it is. I tell everybody you need to get off of this. So you're at the right place. He was directed by Officer Montano to reach out to Clear's office and ultimately was met by Clear staff. If you play the game, we will get this to go away. We charge $8,500 and you can do it in payments, or you could pay $7,500 up front. Would that guarantee this doesn't go on my record? Yes. Mr. Smith, immediately after the meeting, was obviously aware that this was not an appropriate interaction with the lawyer's office, and instead went to a public defender's office where he met with attorneys, was provided an attorney, and immediately told them what took place, and his attorney brought it to the attention of federal investigators. Oh, my God. His case was on a long list of DWI cases. The Bernalillo County District Attorney was forced to dismiss due to an ongoing federal investigation. The FBI is investigating. Officer who fired in 2016, now tied to the corruption scandal. Oh, shit. They're going back in time. Oh my God. Oh, shit. We have a RICO, ladies and gentlemen. They're going back in time. Albuquerque police officer fired in 2016, now tied up. Steve Hendy. The Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office said that based on information from the feds, they placed former Albuquerque Police Department officer Steve Hendy on the Giglio list of officers whose credibility is compromised. He joins 13 other officers from APD, the Sheriff's Office, and New Mexico State Police whose credibility issues are tied to the long-running criminal scheme in which officers took bribes to sabotage DWI cases. He worked on and off for APD starting in 1980. The department fired him in December 2015 after he tried to intimidate an investigator with the Civilian Oversight Agency over a complaint against him. Court records show that in the late 90s, early 2000s, he had more than 50 cases with defense attorney Thomas Clear, who admitted to being the ringleader of the criminal scheme. 2/3 of those cases were dismissed. Take a look at the plea deals in the New Mexico DWI scandal. It's been over 1 year since the public learned of the massive corruption scandal where multiple law enforcement officers worked with at least 2 legal professionals to make DWIs disappear in New Mexico. Key players from what the feds now call a DWI enterprise included members of the Albuquerque Police Department, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, New Mexico State Police, and now disbarred attorney Thomas Clear and his paralegal Rick Mendez. Several of those key players have since pled guilty to federal charges. Below you'll find information about the individuals and copies of the pleas they accepted. Okay. So we'll just quickly go through these. Let's see. That's Rick Mendez. That's Honorio Alba Jr., who you've already heard about. Joshua Montano. Okay. That's your douchebag attorney, Thomas Clear. Look at him. Ringleader of the DWI enterprise since at least 1995. All these guys are getting charged with RICO conspiracy. Okay. Neil Ellsman. Jeff Hammerl. Nelson Ortiz. Harvey Johnson. Lucas Perez. Louis Henkel. Rudy Chavez, Albuquerque lawyer. Longtime Albuquerque lawyer Rudy Chavez pled guilty to interference with commerce by extortion and making false statements to FBI. According to his federal plea deal, Chavez took on a case in 2023 where he worked with Thomas Clear's investigator Rick Mendez to take money from his client to pay off former Albuquerque police officer Honorio Alba. Additionally, Chavez admitted to lying to FBI special agents about his participation in the scheme and whether he coordinated with Alba and Clear in the DWI cases. He was interviewed by the feds about the DWI cases in March 2024. During that interview, Chavez denied knowing Alba was planning to appear in court. His federal plea deal revealed that Chavez lied, and he admitted he had phone calls with Mendez ahead of the court hearings to ensure Alba would not attend. Timothy McCarson, retired Albuquerque Police Department officer. Retired Albuquerque police officer Timothy McCarson pled guilty to conspiracy to commit interference with commerce by extortion. McCarson joined APD in 2006 and was assigned to work with DWI in 2011. He retired in 2022. According to federal court documents, in at least one arrest, McCarson admitted to accepting $5,000 in exchange for no criminal charges to be filed against a DWI arrestee of his. Justin Hunt, this is the alleged child beater, right? Professional courtesy, how an officer crossed the line, July 2025. Again, what's his name? We'll get it. This officer admitted to helping break the law to help out a fellow officer and his girlfriend. But as Gabrielle Burkhardt reports, the officer lectured his DWI suspect about making good decisions before his own decisions led to a federal crime. This cop turned criminal admitted to taking part in a corruption scheme. At least 8 former officers so far have pled guilty in federal court. But what got them there in the first place? In at least one case, one of those officers called his decision a professional courtesy. Hello, how you doing tonight? lapel video from former police officer Louis Henkel III shows him approaching a driver in Northeast Albuquerque in February 2019. He just pulled over a 23-year-old woman. Henkel wrote that the woman was speeding 12 miles an hour over the speed limit. Any alcohol tonight? He asked the woman. I had one drink, she replied. An open bottle of whiskey is under her seat. All right, I'll have you step out real quick, do some field sobriety tests. Henkel joined APD's DWI unit in 2017, so he should be familiar with dangers of drunk driving and what it takes to keep drunk drivers off the road. Put your feet together, hands down at your side, he instructed the woman. After a series of tests that are not visible from the officer's lapel footage, the driver agrees to take a preliminary breath test. Henkel informs her she blew a .13 on the preliminary breath test. So I'm going to place you under arrest for driving under the influence of intoxicating liquor or drug, and I'm going to take you downtown for a calibrated breath test. As the handcuffs go on, Henkel drops some words of wisdom for his arrestee. Life isn't always easy, but you know what? We make decisions in life, good or bad. We make decisions, and there's consequences. The woman later blew a .15 twice on the calibrated breathalyzer. Henkel told her, "You made a bad decision tonight, and it is what it is." He also assured her, "I promise you it'll be okay." It turns out that a decision the officer later made in this case led him to break his oath to uphold the law. Today, he's facing consequences. Audio recordings obtained by KRQE Investigates reveal the first time prosecutors tried to pursue a conviction against the accused drunk driver. As follows. Good morning. We're here today for bench trials. The state ready? Yes, Your Honor. It's 6 months after the young woman's arrest. The defense would ask for a defense continuance and would be willing to waive the rule. A fill-in attorney explained to the judge that the main defense attorney is out sick and asked for more time. Also missing is the main witness in her case, Officer Henkel. The judge agrees to postpone the case, and they're back in court 5 months later. By January 2020, the fix is in. Good afternoon, Thomas J. Clear on behalf of the defendant. Clear announced his appearance in the case January 2020, now representing the accused drunk driver against her DWI charge. Behind the scenes, federal court documents reveal Clear was asked to step in by an Albuquerque police officer who was romantically involved with the young drunk driving suspect. We're here for trial setting, the prosecutor states. The state's necessary witness, Officer Henkel, is not present. The officer check-in seems to indicate, I think he had some kind of, emergency, but another obligation. I personally didn't receive notice of this in advance. I would have filed a motion to continue, but it appears he's sick. Calling in sick. Today, Henkel's federal guilty plea reveals he lied about being sick. Henkel now tells the feds he agreed to call in sick that day as a professional courtesy to a fellow APD conspiring officer in the scheme, the one romantically involved with the woman he arrested. Henkel also admits to accepting a cash payment up to $500 to not appear for her trial. In fact, he admits in his guilty plea, I received the equivalent of my overtime I missed out on for not attending court, which would have been $90 per hearing at which I intentionally failed to appear. Behind the scenes, Henkel said he knew his absence would allow Clear to dismiss the case. He also states he received money directly from Rick Mendez, Clear's paralegal at the time. Mendez was the first to plead guilty to RICO conspiracy charges. We're respectfully going to request that the court dismiss the case at this time, Clear asked the judge. But once again, a Metro Court judge agrees to postpone the trial for the woman. I'll grant the state's motion just one more time. Another delay. Court records show that Assistant DA Elizabeth Bates filed a motion in March 2020 requesting a continuance, citing Officer Louis Henkel is on leave in March 2020. The motion states that Clear does not oppose the motion and the request to delay is granted. Fast forward to June of 2020, 5 months since they'd last appeared in court for the case. In that time, prosecutors had offered a plea deal to the woman. Is that plea offer rejected or accepted? Metro Court Judge Sandra Engel asked Clear. What are we doing on this one? We're going to trial in this case, Clear stated. Once again, the Metro Court judge sets another date for trial, warning prosecutors, I'm really going to need you to reach out to your officers. We've been sending messages telling them they need to call in. You need to make sure that these officers know they have to appear in person for these definites, okay? Prosecutor replied, okay. Judge Engel also gave instructions to arrive early for court for COVID screening since pandemic-related policies were in place at the courtroom during the time. Child care issues. 1 month later, July 2020, they're back in court for the woman's DWI bench trial. All are present in court except the state's key witness, once again, Officer Henkel. Your Honor, the state is not ready for trial today, a new prosecutor for the case states. I spoke with Officer Henkel. He has child care issues now on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the prosecutor explained, asking for a new trial date in the case. Respectfully, Your Honor, we would oppose the state's request to continue this matter even for one more time, said Clear. The former defense attorney pointed out the number of delays in the officer's no-shows. That just seems patently unfair, and at this time we would ask the court to dismiss the case. The frustrated judge said she won't postpone this case again. She acknowledged the new prosecutor in the case, adding she didn't wish to shoot the messenger, but reminded the court of her warning to ensure key officers were present. This case is dismissed with prejudice, said the judge. I'll fill out an order right now and we're going to get you guys out of here, right? Case dismissed. Judge, it's wonderful to be in your presence, Clear said once the dismissal was granted. Thank you, Mr. Clear. Judge Engel chuckled. We'll see you later. Behind the scenes, Henkel now tells the feds he was conspiring with Clear's office, accepting cash in exchange for a case dismissal for the woman. It's a scheme Clear admits he's been running since 1995. Another dismissal in court, another accused drunk driver with no consequences. Judge Engel conveniently retired in September 2022 after a 16-year career. Henkel pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy in federal court last month. His plea agreement states he was offered cash, restaurant gift cards, and free legal advice for the scheme. To date, none of the 8 officers who've taken plea agreements have been sentenced. Can you believe it? We're gonna pause out for a moment. I mean, they're gaming the system since 1995. Is this case? This keeps getting worse. You know, this story keeps getting worse. Here's some of your faces only a mother could love. The federal investigation into Albuquerque DWI officers accepting bribes has seen no sentencing despite guilty pleas, raising questions about the case's progress. This is October. The federal investigation into Albuquerque DWI officers accepting bribes to dismiss cases has stalled, with no sentencing hearings scheduled despite several guilty pleas, raising questions about the case's progress. 23 people have been implicated in what's considered as the largest law enforcement scandal in New Mexico's history, with 11 pleading guilty to federal charges. However, none have been sentenced and all hearings have been canceled. Federal court documents reveal that individuals charged with drunk driving paid up to $5,000, and see, this is incorrect because now we know it's $5,000 to $10,000 to ensure officers did not appear in court. All of these people who have entered guilty pleas entered into deals with the government. The deals may be contingent on information they provide. So we got a dozen people who made a deal Despite scheduled sentencing hearings for Mendez and 3 others, they've all been canceled and no new dates have been set. The last court filing occurred in July 2025 when Chavez pled guilty. KOAT legal expert John Day suggested there might be larger targets in the prosecutor's sights or issues with an investigation. Does that mean there are targets that are larger than these officers in the sights of the prosecutors? Maybe. Doesn't mean there's some problem with the investigation that's caused a complete halt to everything. Maybe there's just so many variables. There was so much attention paid to this, so much energy put in by the FBI and U.S. attorney, and so many statements of their intent to continue the investigation that it does raise questions about what the status is. Court records show Mendez pled guilty in January and a judge granted him permission for international travel a month later, with federal prosecutors not opposing it. Hypothetically, if you have a case where a defendant is giving lots of good information to the government and the government feels comfortable with that person leaving the country, if they feel like they're getting their money's worth, so to speak, from the defendant, maybe there's no reason to oppose international travel, especially if they don't think there's any fear of that person fleeing the jurisdiction, said Day. Neighbors of Mendez told Target 7 they hadn't seen him for months, and attempts to contact his attorneys were unsuccessful. The U.S. Attorney's Office responded to inquiries with an email stating, "Unfortunately, we cannot respond to media inquiries during the government shutdown." Defense attorneys representing those implicated in the scandal expressed concern over lack of progress, with some believing prosecutors are considering additional charges. You don't need to be a genius to figure out, obviously, there's more stuff there that the government doesn't want out, said one attorney. Former U.S. Attorney Alex Ubalez, who resigned a week before Mendez was granted the order to leave the country, said he does not recall discussing the issue before his departure. Eighth officer pleads guilty. Oh, I had this out of order. This should have gone before. Okay. I'll just skip it. It's just a brief one anyway. All right, here we go. 306 cases dropped. February 2026, 2 years into Albuquerque's DWI dismissal scandal, the fallout is still unfolding. Chris and Gabby sit down with KRQE reporter Ann Pierrett to break down her latest reporting, revealing how many accused drunk drivers reoffended after getting a free pass due to these arresting officers losing credibility. The KRQE Investigates team also brings listeners up to speed on where the federal investigation stands now, including shocking new court admissions from a former APD lieutenant who described targeting drunk drivers and exploiting them for cash. When will officers face prison time? How deep can this go? May 2026, okay? Massive evidence dump. Slow sentencing in federal DWI corruption case. 3 defendants in Albuquerque's long-running DWI public corruption scheme were in federal court on Tuesday as the judge questioned prosecutors about why it's taking so long to reach sentencing. What the U.S. Attorney's Office said in response shed some light on why we haven't seen any of the former officers serve prison time yet. News cameras were not allowed in federal court, but KRQE investigative reporter Gabrielle Burkhardt was in the courtroom. She spoke with one of the former officers after the status hearing. Former officer Louis Henkel told KRQE he's accepted responsibility for his role in the scheme, but a looming prison sentence and drawn-out court process have put his life on hold over the past year. Former APD officers Henkel, Ellsman, and the now disgraced attorney Rudy Chavez all faced a federal court judge on Tuesday for a status update on their cases. They're just a few of the more than a dozen people federally charged in the long-running criminal enterprise involving attorneys and officers taking bribes to sabotage DWI cases. U.S. District Court Judge Matthew Garcia pointed out that some of their signed plea agreements are more than a year old at this point, and he wants sentencing to happen in a timely manner. Federal prosecutor Shanna Long told the judge they're in the process of organizing and unsealing a very large amount of discovery, including wiretaps, search warrants, and more than 1 million documents in the case. I would be concerned that once this became public, that evidence could be potentially destroyed, former U.S. Attorney Damon Martinez told KRQE in an April interview. Martinez provided some insight on the case now as an outsider looking in. Since Ryan Ellison replaced Alex Ubalas as the head of New Mexico's U.S. Attorney's Office last year, the feds haven't spoken publicly about the status of the corruption case. The DOJ traditionally doesn't necessarily need to inform the public, Martinez explained. But federal court documents show at least one person charged in the scheme wants the government to be more transparent. Former Officer Hinkle's attorney recently filed a motion arguing that prosecutors should unseal the evidence they have in the case. Hinkle said he believes sunlight is the best disinfectant. He notes that since this is a public corruption case, the evidence should be made public. Last June, Hinkle pled guilty to one count of conspiracy in the scheme, admitting he agreed to be a no-show in court and took a payout equal to the overtime he would have earned if he showed up. His failure to appear in court allowed for a former defense attorney and ringleader in the scheme, Thomas Clear, to dismiss a DWI case against that woman we were just talking about, who was in a relationship with another conspiring officer. Still, Hinkle's role may be considered limited in the criminal enterprise we now know spanned 3 decades. 2 former defense attorneys, a paralegal, and 10 former officers are charged in the DWI corruption scheme. Prosecutor Long from the U.S. Attorney's Office told the judge on Tuesday that those with more limited involvement than others will be sentenced first, likely before the end of the year. That's this year, 2026. Hinkle told KRQE he's now living out of state doing blue-collar work as he waits to see the full scope of evidence against him from the prosecutors. Up to this point, he said he and other defendants have not seen the full scope of evidence. Thomas Clear was also expected in court, but at the last minute, his attorney filed for a delay. Noting Clear had a conflicting medical procedure. Right. So far, former APD officer Timothy McCarson is the only person charged in the scheme who has a court date for sentencing that's set for November in front of a different federal court judge. A bombshell investigation revealed long-running corruption among those who were trusted with upholding the law. And it all started with few tips from people who realized something wasn't right. Now we're learning what federal investigators were looking for as they pieced together this DWI corruption scheme. A key to their puzzle was what Albuquerque police officers were talking about on the phone. KRQE investigative reporter Gabrielle Burkhart combed through the first massive evidence dump from the feds. 2 federal search warrants, more than 120 pages, were just unsealed in federal court, outlining what investigators already knew when they were seeking wiretaps for 3 key players in the DWI corruption scheme in 2023. The wiretaps would eventually grant the FBI access to the cell phones of former paralegal Rick Mendez and former officers Onario Alba and Joshua Montano. The search warrants show one witness after another came forward to the FBI, laying out the foundation of what will become one of the state's biggest public corruption scandals. I was really proud of these people coming forward because I think it takes real courage to do it, Albuquerque attorney Damon Ellie told KRQE in 2024. He was one of those FBI tipsters in 2022 when someone arrested for DWI came into him saying they were being extorted by an Albuquerque police officer working with former defense attorney Thomas Clear's office. Recently unsealed search warrants show that by late 2023, the FBI had already interviewed a handful of witnesses, looked through financial records, secured confidential informants, and combed through lapel camera footage from 2 Albuquerque police officers they believe were key players in the scheme. Okay, so in other words, they interviewed witnesses, they looked through the financial records, they secured confidential informants, CIs, they looked through all the camera footage, and they wiretapped their phones. Documents show the 2 communicated and arranged cash payments primarily through Rick Mendez, who at the time worked as a paralegal for Clear. Okay. The search warrant shows Mendez and Montano exchanged many phone calls throughout the day around the same time an FBI witness was arrested in 2022. A second FBI witness told investigators Montano stopped him for DWI in 2023. Then he got a call from Mendez personally. He said Mendez had his driver's license and offered him a deal, pay $6,000 cash, and the charges would all go away. According to the search warrant, that witness allowed the feds to access his phone when Mendez upped the price and told him, I mean, you could go to any attorney in the state, nobody's going to guarantee you off. And you can guarantee this is what we do. Federal investigators were also onto Alba, even connecting him to a meetup where Mendez was reportedly in an APD car with Alba. Remember how we started this thing? One of these meetups, the paralegal for this corrupt attorney is sitting in the police car with Alba, receiving the bribe. At the same time, paralegal collected thousands in cash in exchange for this court dismissal guaranteed. From October 2022 to November 2023, FBI investigators stated Mendez and Officer Montano exchanged approximately 55 calls and more than 806 text messages. In that same time frame, Mendez and Officer Alba exchanged approximately 45 phone calls and 1,618 text messages. 2 months after those search warrants were filed in federal court in late 2023, the FBI raided the homes of those suspected in the scheme. The feds later charged all 3 with federal RICO conspiracy charges. All 3 admitted to setting up side deals to line their own pockets and extort people whom the officers were arresting. The evidence laid out in the 2 search warrants only scratched the surface of a scheme that spanned 3 decades and involved at least 3 law enforcement agencies. Remember, that's the police department, the sheriff's office, and the state police. Again, the police department, the sheriff's office, and the state police. Again, the police department, the sheriff's office, and the state police. That's right. That's right. This is a RICO. Anyhow, guys, what I have following is hundreds of pages, and there's absolutely no way we're going to get to it tonight after all of this. So I think what I'll do is forego that for a part 2. So this will be a 2-parter then, because I have 3 or 4 of the documents from the federal court docket. But tonight, there's no way we'll get to it all. So that's where we're going to be left because honestly, I'm not feeling so good. And that was a lot. That was a lot more reading than I thought. But that's okay. As far as your media coverage of this, that's about it. Literally, there may be 2 or 3 more articles that are just cursory. I scoured the internet for news articles on this, and literally, this was just about all I could find. So this is about all there is on this entire thing, and it's mind-boggling because why do you only have 2 local news outlets who are covering this? It seems like pretty expansive. You know, you're going back 30 years. You've got 1 million pages that are going to be unsealed. So far, we just have a few hundred, which was my intent to get into in the second half. But I think we've gone long enough. But we'll do a part 2 where we start going through some of these documents. This may be part a 3 or 4 parter because, yeah, with 1 million documents, we're not going through them all, but we'll go through the really pertinent filings and show you the fine lines here. But I would ask you to think about how on earth you have internal affairs involved, right? The commander, you have at least 10 cops so far involved, which span 3 agencies between the local Albuquerque Police Department, the county sheriff's office, and the New Mexico State Police. And you've got a couple dirty defense attorneys in on this. And I just like you to just consider that in reference to Delphi. Okay, consider that in reference to Delphi. You have an ongoing RICO that is expansive. You've got 10 of those 12 who are indicted so far cooperating. You have the feds stalling because of this cooperation as they expand this investigation. You've already seen the evidence tonight that they're going back in time, and they're also charging retired or former officers who are no longer even working. So they're already back 10 years in some of those officers who they've gone and charged. So yeah, this is a big one. But yeah, it's a quiet show tonight, guys. It's a quiet show. I don't know. I don't think my notifications went out. It's pretty bizarre, actually. It's highly unusual Friday night. So with that being said, I'm out of here. But God bless everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Hey, go Google up some of this story and read it and listen to it for yourself. There are many videos. I know I just showed you the most recent news report, but you can go and look, and you'll find a lot of the various broadcasts in which this was, covered in your news media. So you can go watch some of that stuff if you're interested about this case. Otherwise, we'll do a part 2, maybe part 3 or 4. We'll figure out what happens. But yeah, we're getting all these documents. They are also very long, so it's a lot to get into, but we'll be digging into that. It'll be fun. Hey, thank you, Silenced. Look, we got Silenced. We got Mustang, Dewey, Nicole Watt. What's up, Monday? We got Matt Payton, Deb's here. 4 pit bulls across America. Who else is in here? Becky, Arthur Claremont. Hey, I didn't see Arthur Claremont. What's up, Claremont? We got who's that? American Night Mom. Okay. Emily was here. Hey, Emily. Court of Public Opinion was here. Shelley Klein, Emily, Seraphic Pathways. DSAR live stream. Who's Your Daddy was here. Swade Smith. Anarch 00141. Trial Junkie was here. Quadaxo Mimi was here. Who did I miss? Christina was here super earlier. Mandy Boo. Hey, Mandy Boo. Rebecca Ann was here. Hey, Rebecca Ann. Ninja Warrior Assassin. Yeah. Who's that? Steffa. Support with Steffa was here. Hey, everybody. I'm glad to see you. I'm totally beat and I'm not feeling well, so I'm out of here. Oh, Mark Ellis was here. What's up, Mark? Yeah, we had a lot of good friends in here, so thanks everybody for being here. Whew. I just cannot wait. I cannot wait for this. Will this continue to come forward? But you know what's going to happen when this story really breaks, and here's what's going to happen. When the first sentencings start rolling out, the story's going to start breaking in the national media. And then when more arrests happen, it's going to break into national media. So we're going to see more from this. And even though this goes all the way back to 2022, when this kind of got rolling, 2022, 2023, it's been years. It's like a slow roll, but it's more to come. So yeah, that's what up. I'm out of here. Good night, y'all. Happy Friday, okay? Have a good weekend, a good Saturday. Make it good. See y'all later.